There were people out there trying to scare people into putting their own lives at risk and their communities at risk. My job to keep Canadians safe involves following the science, following the best expertise of our public health officials, of our doctors. And I won't apologize for doing that. We kept Canadians safe through that pandemic. Canadians kept each other safe during the pandemic in spite of those who are mistakenly telling everyone and deliberately telling everyone that getting a vaccine was worse than getting COVID.
A year after the convoy came to the capital, can you reflect on where you think the movement is right now? I mean, there's clearly a heightened police presence here. There are protesters outside. Do you feel the movement has grown? Do you feel it's abated? What's your read on what's happened over the past 12 months? I
don't know. I think that's a better question to ask Mr. Poilievre. He seems a lot closer to the convoy. My approach is very much on making sure that we're delivering good jobs and good opportunities for Canadians. We know that people are worried and even frustrated about how the world is unfolding around them. And as a politician, you have two choices. You can either try and amplify those fears, make people even madder, reflect that anger and that uncertainty that people are legitimately feeling because the world is changing in unpredictable ways, reflect that back at them without offering real solutions. Or you can choose to buckle down and deliver on the kinds of things that are going to make people feel confident in their own future, in their kids' future, in their community's future, in their jobs. These are the kinds of choices you have to make as a leader. Quite frankly, when Mr. Poilievre's best solution to inflation is to buy cryptocurrency, that's not responsible leadership. If people had bought crypto when he told them that was the best way to opt out of inflation, they would have lost half of their life savings. That's not a solution. What we're talking about here, rolling up our sleeves, doing the hard work, investing in good jobs on assembly lines like this one that are building the products that not just Canadians want, but the world wants. Doing it with cleaner energy. Doing it in an environmentally responsible way and putting workers and communities at the center of what they do. Listen, there are always going to be politicians out there who try to, exploit legitimate anger and concerns that people have. But that's not the way to get something built. Crossing your arms and saying Canada is broken. It's not the way to build a better future for Canadians. Recognizing, we're facing tough times right now. But we're going to be there for each other. We're going to deliver, whether it's dental care for kids, whether it's support with a GST rebate, whether it's childcare to make sure that families can have the real choices to actually engage in the workforce or not. These are things that make a huge positive difference. These are things that the Conservative Party under Poilievre has stood against. So it can pay off to drum up anger and encourage people to wave flags. But if you actually want to deliver a better future for Canadians, you want to reassure them that there is a bright future for them and their communities and their families, you got to roll up your sleeves and do the work. And that's what people here know. That's what I'm here to do.
About a year ago, you called some of the protesters who came to Parliament Hill conspiracy theorists and people with tinfoil hats. I know you meant the protesters, but a lot of people feel like you call them people with tinfoil hats. Do you regret those words now?
My responsibility as a Prime Minister is stand up for people's safety, people's well-being in this country. That's what I did during the pandemic. I took some tough decisions to make sure that people were able to stay safe, they were able to hang on to their jobs, they were able to make sure we're not overwhelming our healthcare systems and protecting those frontline heroes by getting vaccinated. And at the same time as 80% of Canadians were stepping up to do the right thing, not just for themselves, but for their neighbors. There were people out there trying to scare people into putting their own lives at risk and their communities at risk. My job to keep Canadians safe involves following the science, following the best expertise of our public health officials, of our doctors, and I won't apologize for doing that. We kept Canadians safe through that pandemic. Canadians kept each other safe during the pandemic in spite of those who are mistakenly telling everyone and deliberately telling everyone that getting a vaccine was worse than getting COVID. It breaks my heart to this day to know how many families were sitting beside the loved one's bedside as they lay dying, saying, "Oh my God, I just wish I hadn't listened to all those nasty YouTube videos because my father, my brother, is dying of COVID because he thought the vaccine was more dangerous." So, no, I will not back off on making sure that we are keeping Canadians safe. That's the job Canadians asked me to do when they elected me Prime Minister, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister. It's Jennifer with CBC Windsor. If you can answer in English and French as well for me. So auto workers here at this plant are on layoff multiple times, and when that happens, there's a trickle effect throughout the economy. And those layoffs most recently have been because of microchip shortages. So I'm wondering what your government is doing to fix that shortage.
I had a great conversation about semiconductors with the Mexican and American Prime Ministers just last week, presidents just last week, where we were talking about how we need to continue building up a really strong semiconductor microchip ecosystem across North America. Being reliant on supply chains from China, with their zero COVID strategy being a real challenge over the past years, but also with challenges around unreliability and political incompatibility, means that building up a strong supply chain here that will prevent those kinds of disruptions is really important. And Canada's already an important player in semiconductors. We have an extremely large plant in Bromont, Quebec, that is part of the supply chain and ecosystem for semiconductors, and there's more to do. And what we three leaders agreed on at the North American Leaders Summit last week was that we need to be even more integrated and more complete in how we are reliant on each other and not the rest of the world, so that our factories like this one, our assembly lines like this one, our industries across the country can rely on reliable partners and not unreliable supply chains around the world. L'enjeu de la reliance sur la Chine, de la dépendance sur la Chine pour les semi-conducteurs et les électroniques qui sont associés est un enjeu dont on a discuté la semaine passée au sommet des leaders nord-américains. Et avec le leadership que le Canada est déjà en train de démontrer au niveau des semi-conducteurs, on a une des usines les plus grandes en Amérique du Nord à Bromont, pour l'assemblage. Nous sommes là pour participer à une chaîne d'approvisionnement plus sûre, plus fiable, pour empêcher qu'on ait des interruptions comme ils ont vécu ici à Stellantis.
Of Canadian politicians, including 2 members of your caucus, have been urging your government since October to fast-track bringing 9 female former MPs from Afghanistan to Canada. 1 has now been murdered. Is your government going to take any action to help the remaining women get to Canada?
Our heart breaks for the people of Afghanistan right now. Canada has stepped up significantly over the past decades, including with the lives of a number of Canadians fighting for a better future for Afghan women and girls specifically. And we will continue to be there for the people of Afghanistan. We were there at the evacuation to bring people over. We continue to commit to one of the highest targets of all our allied countries, 40,000 Afghans to bring to Canada to safety. We know there's more to do, and we're going to continue working to make sure that the most vulnerable people are able to get out. At the same time, we have to recognize that the Taliban is not allowing people to leave. It's putting people at risk. So our ability to do that is extremely limited, but we're going to continue to be there for the Afghan people.
Next question.
I'm from CP. My question is, the commander of the Canadian military's Joint Operation Command has raised concern that Canada is not a part in a security pact between Canada's most important allies, Australia, the US, and the UK. And similar concerns were raised by the head of Canada's Defence Industry Association. My question is, why is not Canada a member of this group, this pact? And are you does your government want to be included in the pact?
Canada is a strong and proud member of the Five Eyes alliance between Canada, the United States, Great Britain, New Zealand, and Australia. And we do a tremendous amount of information sharing and security work together all around the world. And we will continue to, as we continue to share actively our challenges and our solutions. It is an extremely strong alliance, and it continues. The nuclear submarine deal that Australia worked out with the United States and the UK is a separate thing, but we're always looking to do more and deeper with our partners, either in the Pacific or elsewhere around the world, but Canada won't be buying nuclear submarines anytime soon.
My next question is Canada making any contingency plans in the event of a continued dispute in the US Congress over debt limit?
Listen, Canada will always work to make sure that we are able to weather any storm that the United States deliberately or inadvertently throws our way. We continue to watch closely what's going on in the United States, but we're going to make sure that Canadians continue to succeed regardless of what happens down there. That's what we were able to do through some difficult years under the previous administration. That's what we're going to be able to do regardless of what happens in the States.